Today we're making a tier list of hard NES games. This isn't going to be every NES game, I haven't even played them all, but this is going to be specifically for... it was so much better the first time. This is going to be specifically games I played for the NES Gauntlet, which if you don't know, it was a challenge I made up to play 20 really hard NES games all in one day. Adventure Island's still up there. Just ignore that, I suppose. Speaking of the NES Gauntlet, I had this shirt made for it, and I just think it's really cool. Check that thing out. Really happy with how the design came out, and it is still available for purchase if you didn't know. I feel like a lot of people don't know it exists, but I think it's awesome, so check it out. Alright, these games are in alphabetical order, so we'll just go one at a time. First up, Adventure Island. We'll also enjoy some tunes from each game as we talk about it. And right off the bat, we have an insanely hard game. I think this game is incredibly hard. Like, it's not nearly as bad, maybe on successive playthroughs, but getting through this game for the first time is crazy, especially if you don't find this hidden item that lets you continue from game overs. Otherwise, you'd have to do it without game over, and that would be an insane feat. It's hard enough just doing it with the ability to continue. So yeah, right off the bat, we got one of the hardest games on this list. We'll move right along. Batman, I'm actually going to throw in honorable mentions. This game really wasn't that hard. Oh, we got to get the Batman music going. This game really wasn't that hard, but the final boss is. Beating Joker in this is crazy, dude. I think I got to Joker in like an hour and a half on my first playthrough, and then beating him took 5 more hours. There is kind of some cheesy strats you can do, which aren't quite as bad or nearly as hard, but if you try and fight him legit, or even just, I don't know, trying to figure out how to choose him is, yeah, it's a hard fight. So that goes in honorable mentions for that reason alone. What happened? It's like not the same size anymore. Whatever, we're just gonna keep going. Okay, next up is Battletoads. Dude, we're getting like some of the hardest ones up front. Battletoads is super hard. I honestly did not believe the hype on Battletoads, but it's a really hard game. I did manage to beat it in one day, which is an achievement I'm very proud of. I never played it, and then I managed to beat it in the same day I started. It took 14 hours. This would be a good time to knock something out where anytime you rank things in difficulty, there's so many different factors, right? Like, some games are hard just because they don't let you continue after a game over. Some games are hard only because of, like, one final boss. Some games are consistently hard, or you don't have a lot of lives, whatever. So there's a ton of different factors, and it's impossible to really make a proper list, but... Anyway, Battletoads, one of those games that you have a limited number of lives and continues. And there's just so much to learn. This is a really long game, and, like, you have to play all the way back to the stage you got to, learn a little bit more, get destroyed by whatever new thing you encounter, and then do it all again. Once you have learned it, though, this is like the best game on the NES. It is so fun and really impressive the way they made it. All right. Yeah, you do see these two little like sections on the bottom. Today we're mostly focusing on my top 10 hardest NES games, and so, Big Nose... Well, I actually played a bunch of games that looked fun and were decently hard, and then I picked the 20 hardest of those to actually put in the NES Gauntlet. So this one actually didn't even make it to the NES Gauntlet top 20 cut. But yeah, still a pretty fun game. It's unlicensed, probably not a lot of people know about it, but if you're looking for a fun NES game you've never played, that's one. Next up is Blaster Master, and this game is awesome. And it's really hard. This is going in very hard game. Yeah. Going back to how things are kind of hard to rank, this game isn't that hard all of the time, just some of the time. Mostly the bosses. If you don't use turbo or have amazing mashing skills, the bosses in this game are crazy hard. Especially like the latter half of the game. It's like, sometimes people will say like, this game looks like it was designed with turbo in mind, and I usually disagree, but the bosses in Blaster Master, probably. Yeah, but really cool game and amazingly well designed. Like, it's a Metroidvania basically. You get a new ability, and then they make a shortcut as you're backtracking. Use that ability to get out of the area faster. It's just beautiful. All right, Bucky O'Hare. This is a game I initially played because I reached out to YouTube community post and said, tell me some hard NES games. And someone was like, you wouldn't even dare play Bucky O'Hare. Probably just because it rhymed, but yeah. It was in the NES Gauntlet. It's not going to be in my top 10. Here's the thing, though. This game, anytime you die, you just reappear pretty much on the screen you died on. And that's why it's not that hard. Like, you never lose progress. Other than that, it would be pretty hard. There's some really hard bosses. There's random stuff that'll just kill you in one hit. You'll fall in a pit. Some screens take some good memorization or puzzle solving to get through. But yeah, because you can continue so easily, it's really not that hard in the end. I mean, yeah, that's a good point. If you did hard mode where you constantly die in one hit, that would up the difficulty a lot. But yeah, again, you never really lose progress, so I wouldn't put it in my top 10. Man, I keep, like, scrolling differently. I don't know what happened. I feel like a second ago... Did I, like, zoom in more? Maybe that's... I don't know. I want to, like... show the bottom, but it keeps like shrinking. As I put games up, the list on the bottom shrinks or something. It's really weird. I guess I have to zoom out a little bit. It's up Cypher, by the way. Alright. We'll call that good. Frackner Zed to you. Alright, next up is Castlevania. I might have to stick this one here for now. I could easily pick like a top 9, but there's gonna be a few that are kind of the toss-up for number 10 as far as this list goes. So we might stick that there for now. It's like kind of hard on a first playthrough. After I played through 2 and 3, and I've played through Castlevania 1 a bunch of times now, I'm like, this game's really not that hard. It's kind of how it goes once you learn strats. What am I doing? I gotta play the Castlevania music. We can't miss out on this. But yeah, once you figure out how to deal with just like a few enemies in the game and get strats for a few of the bosses, it's like really not that bad of a game. Not too hard. Castlevania 2. This game's mostly hard just figuring out where to go. Which I don't really put that as far as like difficulty. And I think people give this game too much credit for being like cryptic or whatever. There was really like one spot I think I got stuck, and later in the game I found a hint that it is possible to learn what to do there. So there's like 2 or 3 spots in this game where you can easily get stuck and the answer feels kind of absurd to figure out, but I put some things together and figured out most of them. There's like 1 spot I got stuck, but yeah, it's not that bad, and combat-wise, it's a really easy game. As far as this list goes, it's really easy. Compared to, like, easy games, it's not easy, I guess. Third Castlevania, though. This is definitely going to go up here. Probably right around there. Maybe here. I don't know. I'm not sure yet. It's pretty hard. Retro Rigio, thank you for the 3 months. Yeah, Death Fight is really hard in Castlevania 1. If you don't cheese any of the bosses in Castlevania 1 with Holy Water, then they're pretty tough. Especially Death. But yeah, Castlevania 3. I'll rearrange it later to figure out, but there's some screens in this that are wild. I'm sure they got feedback in Castlevania 1 that stairs were very hard. You're just stuck on stairs, you get hit by an enemy and die. Dude. They took that advice and made more stairs. I don't know what happened, but there's like screens filled with stairs and filled with enemies, and it's like, what is going on here, man? Especially the US version, things deal more damage, or like, I'm probably gonna get some things wrong, but as far as I understand, like especially later in the game, you can only get hit like 3 times, and I think it's stage 10. It's like 3 stages from the end. It's so long. You finally get to the boss, and it's this doppelganger version of you, and unless you confuse its AI so you can just beat it for free, it's really hard to avoid getting hit, and you have to make it all the way there. It's just a hard game to beat, honestly. There's a lot to learn. Alright, Ghosts and Goblins. This is probably gonna go in here. Well, I think this game's harder. I know some people would put this up here, but maybe it's because I grew up playing Super Ghouls and Ghosts that I just don't think this game is that hard. I think stage 6, you have to learn how to beat some red Aramers, and like that's all. I don't know. My first playthrough did take like 7 hours, but you have to do 2 loops, and stage 2 and 6 are really the hard ones. The ones in between there are like just really not that hard. Like, they don't deserve to be up here, at least. I'm gonna put that there for now. I don't know. I'll rearrange later. Okay. We're gonna skip that game for now. Let's go on to Kid Icarus. So, Kid Icarus barely didn't make my top 20 of all the NES games. I put Metroid in. I probably could have put Kid Icarus over Metroid. It is kind of hard to decide, but when I was picking the 20 hardest games of the ones I was playing for the NES Gauntlet, it barely didn't make the cut. It has some pretty hard moments, and then other moments that like really aren't that hard. So overall, it's like not super tough, but some moments are hard. Like, don't go into it thinking it's like a breeze. But yeah, really cool game, honestly. Okay, Little Samson. Again, also not really that hard. I will order the tiers. Maybe I'll order them after I get everything in place. But Little Samson, not too bad. And a cool game where you get to play as 4 different characters. There's like a couple hard bosses, but that's about it. The ending section's kind of troll. Not too tough, though. All right, Mega Man 1. I have a weird, hot take, controversial opinion that this game is like... I think this game is easier than Mega Man 2, and also better. But I'm a weird person for thinking that. Yeah, I just had a very simple time with it. Maybe it's because Mega Man 2 was my first Mega Man, and then I played Mega Man 1 right after, and I was like more in understanding what I needed to do. I don't know, but even like after the fact, analyzing them both, I just like Mega Man 1 more, and I think it's easier. I don't know. That's not what most people think. But yeah, either way, it's not in my top 10 hardest of this list. Okay, Metroid, again, this one's not that bad. This game's hard until you get like 3 energy tanks, and then it's like, it's not hard anymore. It's just, like, just not hard. Especially if you get like Varia Suit. Yeah, you can just go to a boss and mash the B button or lay some bombs or whatever. You have enough health that they'll just die. The last area, especially the last room, is actually pretty crazy. If you don't have a ton of health, like, that's a wild room. You can just get destroyed, like chain comboed, hard to get back into place, and yeah, it can be tough. But overall, like, it's not a crazy hard game, especially if you know where to go. I can agree with that for sure, Liquefy. Like, you get points, which is kind of weird, and it feels a little bit more empty than Mega Man 2. Like, I agree Mega Man 2 is like more polished and refined, but there's a few things. Like, honestly, just, what is it, Wily 4? The one where you fight the boss where you need crash bombs and you die and then you don't have enough, or if you get there and you don't have the ammo. Like, in Mega Man 1, there's a spot where you need Magnet Beam, but you just get ammo right there, and you can get as much as you want. If they did that before that boss in Wily 4, I would probably think the game was way better. But I'm a little bitter about that part, and I think it's just so bad. Like, it's a really long stage that you have to replay, and then if you just miss, like, one shot, or, I don't know, it's kind of annoying. Anyway. And the other thing is, I don't know, I feel like the bosses in Mega Man 1 were like real fights where you like learned a pattern and then fought them. Whereas Mega Man 2 was like, oh, you will either get owned or you use the right weapon and they die instantly. And I was playing on normal difficulty or whatever. Like, I was playing on Rockman, so the harder difficulty. So they didn't die in 1 or 2 hits, but it's like usually like 4 hits. Yeah, I just didn't feel, I just like one more. We'll leave it at that. And it's fine that other people love it. All right, Ninja Gaiden. We're probably going to stick this here right now. Also, it's probably not going to make the top 10. I'm not sure. But it's hard for sure. I think Ninja Gaiden is... You know, some of the games on this list, not everyone's going to play. They might be slightly less popular. Ninja Gaiden's probably one of the most popular and most hard. Like... I don't know. It's the most widespread one that does have some real difficulty behind it, but I don't think it's as hard as a lot of the other ones on this list. Pretty good game. Well, it's like fun and satisfying. On a first playthrough, I think it's kind of annoying because they deliberately put enemies right after pits all the time, so you jump over the pit and get knocked back into it. That's like the core game design for some reason. Yeah, but it's fun when you know how to beat it. All right, Ninja Gaiden 2. If this is one of those that's like in my maybe top 10, but I'm not sure yet. I'm going to stick on honorable mentions for now because at the very least, the last boss, and it has multiple phases, but one of the phases is really hard. It's Jackie 02, I think, or I said Jackie 02 because it's in the sequel game. Whatever, just the Jackie fight in this game is, I actually think, very, very hard. It's a little bit easier if you get there with 2 shadow clones, but like just doing that is hard because the stage before it is hard, and blah blah blah. It's a decently hard game. Which is interesting because I've heard speedrunners of this game talk about how they think this one's a lot easier than Ninja Gaiden 1. But I kind of think it's harder. It's easier to make progress in several of the levels. I'd say they're really like not that bad. I think it's just better designed, maybe. It's probably what it is. But yeah, some of the bosses are definitely like way harder. Ninja Gaiden 3, though. That one's definitely the hardest. And here's the thing. It's just because you have limited continues, honestly. If you didn't have if you had infinite continues, I don't know how it would compare to the others. There's still some pretty hard parts, but the fact that you have to get through the whole game limited continues gets it, like, up here somewhere. Ninja Gaiden 3 has higher enemy damage than others. Yeah, that is the reason. I think Ninja Gaiden 2, you just don't take a lot of damage from enemies. That's why it's kind of easier. But yeah, Ninja Gaiden 3, you'll take a bunch of damage. You get the giant sword, though, which is great. That's like the saving grace of the game. Get that giant sword. 1 and 2, I didn't feel like you had to master Ninpo abilities that much. They're just kind of use whatever you want. There's some places where you get the spin. I don't know what it's called, but it makes Ninja Gaiden 1 a lot easier if you have that in a few spots. Ninja Gaiden 2, if you have clones, they make bosses a lot easier. But Ninja Gaiden 3, I feel like there's a lot of screens where it's like, dude, you just gotta make use of it. They give you plenty of, like, energy, whatever, Ninpo points, which is great, but yeah. Punch-Out. This was in the Gauntlet. I have kind of probably a weird position on this game because I had played it before my first playthrough, but the only thing I had played was the Tyson fight because, you know, I like to watch like Summoning Salt or people stream speedruns of this game, and I wanted to try the Tyson fight. Or I think Salt was even in my chat and was like, hey, try fighting Tyson, and then got to laugh when I died in one hit, right? But I was like, oh, okay, I gotta learn how to beat this now. And yeah, I would randomly beat Tyson for fun, and then I even wanted to beat him in round 1, which I've done one time. I got 259, 1 second to spare. Let's go. We've one-rounded Tyson. But yeah. So I'd already done that, and then I did my first playthrough of the game. That probably made it way easier, but I didn't think the game was that hard at that point. I think I got knocked down like twice in my first playthrough in all the fights. If I had to do Tyson on my first playthrough, sure, that'd be really hard. But I just like already knew how it worked. So it's kind of hard for me to rank. It's either way, I don't think it'd go in my top 10. The game is straightforward. Like, once you master a couple things, like dodge and punch, as silly as it sounds, that's kind of how the game goes. You get to a new fighter, and it's like, oh, okay, that's how his punches work. I'll dodge it and punch him now, right? Sometimes you gotta, like, throw a punch to bait theirs, but Yeah, it's more of like a puzzle game. It's not as heavy on execution, so it doesn't make it that hard. All right, Rygar is a cool game. It is very easy though, especially for this kind of a list. It's a cool game where it's more of an exploration game. Find some abilities to get to new places. The final boss is insanely hard unless you figure out a cheese strat. I was really close to beating him, and then I had an idea, and the idea worked, and then the final boss is completely free. But yeah, I don't know. Either way, it's not that hard of a game, but really cool. Check it out if you haven't played it. Okay, Silver Surfer. This game is so overhyped in difficulty, honestly, and in how bad people think it is. I was shocked. You'll notice a lot of games that I chose to include in the NES Gauntlet aren't beat 'em ups or shooters, like scrolling shooters. Is that just what you call them? Battletoads, kind of a beat 'em up. Silver Surfer, definitely one of those shooter games, but yeah, those just aren't my favorite genres. But what was I gonna say? Those just aren't my favorite genres, and so I'd heard so many bad things about Silver Surfer. I went into it like, this is going to be the worst out of all the games I play, but I have to play it because of its reputation. And then I thought it was really fun. I just like don't understand. I actually really like the aspect of having to not run into walls. I think that makes the game a lot more fun and less boring, because it's like the entire game is auto-scrollers. That's kind of why I don't like shooters that much, but yeah. It gives you something to do, and the hitbox is actually made very well for an NES game. I know people are like, it's huge, your surfboard touches a wall, you die. But like, the hitbox is made perfectly around your character, and it's not that hard. There's occasionally some spots where it's like, is this a wall? Is it not? But it's like not that big of a deal. And really the only thing in this game that's actually pretty bad or like unfairly hard, like I see some people saying, is if every now and then an enemy will just fly onto the screen and take you out. And it's like, oh, I just had to know that was coming or not be on that part of the screen. I don't know. But if you play this game, I do recommend using Turbo for the sake of your hands. I like beat it without Turbo, but if you try and just do one level after another in succession without Turbo and you're like mashing constantly, it's not good for your hands. But yeah, I didn't think it was that hard or bad, and I don't even like this genre. Okay, Super C is also kind of in the conversation for my 10th game. I'm not sure. We'll have to figure it out. Yeah, like I said, there was like a clear 9 games, and then the 10th one, I'm like, none of these are quite as hard as the rest. But I can't remember. I can't remember exactly why I ranked it as hard as I did now, because I have this spreadsheet where I like ranked all the difficulties. I gave it like a 7.5, which doesn't sound that bad, but like I said, the ones competing for 10th place are kind of in that ballpark. Up here are like 9.5. These are like 9, 8.5. These are like 8.58. Yeah. So yeah. What was I gonna say? Super C, the thing about both Contra games... Wait, where'd the other Contra go? Oh, I don't have Contra on here, I guess. Well, I don't know where it went, but it would have been in this row in the NES Gauntlet, not top 10. Both Contra games are very fair. There is like some spots where you're running forward and then like a wall pops up, or, you know, like an enemy really quickly appears and tries to shoot you, or like it like shoots as soon as it comes on screen, kind of a thing. But pretty much anything in the game you can react to, you can dodge. Everything happens frame one when you push a button, which is fantastic. Like if a bullet's coming, you can crouch, instantly crouches. You can stand up, you can crouch, turn around and shoot, just instantly. Fantastic game for that reason. But yeah, Super C, I guess I thought it was kind of hard. I remember the final couple bosses being a bit underwhelming, but I guess some of the stages, I remember like these vertical stages that are really hard. And if you, it's one of those games where, you know, you lose the best gun and then it gets a lot harder. Loop 40 plus. Great. And I think in Contra 1, the hardest stages are definitely those base ones where you're like shooting forwards. And this game, they changed it to where you like walk forwards and you can walk in 8 directions. I think those are easier than the base missions on the first game. But a couple of them have like crazy parts that are really hard to get through. All right, Ninja Turtles. This one's actually kind of hard for me to rank also because I had played it as a kid. Compared to everything else on this list, I actually played them all for the first time like a year ago. So I did play this as a kid, and I think it's really hard, but also not that hard in some places. Like there's a lot of rooms where it's just like, oh, I just go through, I swing my weapon a few times, I just have to be precise to kill the enemies. I use Donatello, so I don't actually have to be that precise. But yeah, then like the last couple stages are wild. I mean, there's some classic rooms in this game you can think of if you've played it where, oh, that's a one-hit kill right there, and I have to make sure I don't make a mistake on that room. But then it's not like crazy hard until like the second to last stage. You're in some caves and the enemies there do a bunch of damage and they're really hard to dodge. And you have to go all the way in the cave. If you don't find the Technodrome, you have to go back out, which is hard and you probably die. And then the Technodrome itself is very hard, especially the hallway TM. Everyone who's played it knows what I'm talking about if you've been there. That hallway is wild. Basically, this game is like, did you learn how to farm the OP scroll weapon? If so, it's not that bad. But otherwise, it's kind of insane to try and beat. Yeah, so I'm just not sure. I need to just get these last couple up, and then I'll figure out my exact top 10 and what tier to put them in. Okay, we're gonna go Zelda 2. This one's also hard to rank. The thing about this game is this game's difficulty scales weirdly, and I don't mean like the actual game, I mean you as a player. I feel like this game is like, whoa, this game is insanely hard, and then you figure out some of the combat, and just most enemies you just like jump and hit them on the way down, and then it's like, oh, okay, it's not really as hard anymore. Or like, oh, once I got to attack level 4 or 5, like, the game's actually not quite as bad anymore. Then you get to Great Palace, and it's like, oh, this is insanely hard again. I feel like Great Palace, compared to everything else, is crazy to try and get through. Mostly the first time, and if you're not, like, using the ferry to fly over them, if you don't know the exact path through Great Palace, if you don't know where all of the, like, health potions are and ferry refills, it's really hard to beat Great Palace. This game is mostly hard for the learning curve. after you beat the learning curve, it's like, oh, this game's actually not that hard. And you can save and take as much time as you need to get through it. So it's like hard to rank, but just on paper, actually executing the game and the difficulty of the enemies, it's pretty hard. Minus Nintendo Power cryptic stuff. That's actually something I disagree with. Like, Castlevania 2 actually has a few spots that are like, what? Like, I'm just supposed to do what in this one exact spot? What? Have this thing equipped? What? But Zelda 2, there is something that everything in the game, there's a villager that tells you you need to do that. Or you need to read the manual. There's like 3 spots I got stuck in. I just hadn't read the manual. And it's like, oh, that item can do that? I didn't know. There's like one spot you need to play the whatever musical instrument it is in that game. Flute thing. And I walked there and did it immediately. I thought it was obvious. There's like a wall you have to walk through. A villager tells you about that. I took down notes of everything villager said and had no trouble really figuring out what to do. Except the spots where I didn't read the manual, which again, you just gotta read. But yeah, let's get this last game on the tier list and then we can reorder them and figure out exactly what our top 10 are. Alright guys, we're down to the last one, Holy Diver. We saved this one for last, and I know exactly where it goes. It goes up here. Wait, whoops. What color was this? Let's try this again. I know exactly where it goes. It goes up here. This is the Holy Diver tier. It's just like by far the hardest one out of all of these. This game is crazy, dude. And it also has like some difficulty spike stuff and learning curves. So after I'd beaten the game, finally stage 1 was like, oh, this stage isn't that hard. But then like the rest of the game is still really hard. I still don't quite feel like I know how you're supposed to beat the last stage or one of the last stages. There's a few parts where I'm like, can you actually beat this game by killing all of the enemies? I feel like there's some enemies you just have to run away from, which usually isn't that satisfying to me. I want to fight them and like gamer moment kill them. But yeah. It's like, even if you know exactly what you're doing, you still have to like constantly use all of the right spells and not fall into this trap where it can eat your inputs and you run into a pit and get a good pattern on a specific enemy for me to get past one of them that I don't know how to get past otherwise. And the boss of the 4th stage is incredibly stupid and you'll just probably fall in a pit and die during the boss fight. And trying to figure out how to beat the second to last boss for the first time is like, I have no idea if I'm fighting it right or doing damage at all, and it just hits you and you don't know how to avoid it unless you do one specific strat, which also feels like cheese. Anytime I actually progressed in the game, I felt like I was doing cheese. I don't know. But yeah, it's hard. Like the very first stage, which is so much easier than the rest. You have to like very diligently kill these bats to get past them. And that's just a taste of what's to come. There's so many screens where it's like, I have to know exactly where to go, use this spell, dodge this guy, shoot at this spot on the screen to kill that guy, reuse the spell that freezes time, just like keep going, get to this boss, do it right, hope it doesn't kill you. I don't know, it is a crazy game. Uh, Also, I guess technically it's not an NES game. It is only on Famicom, which is wild because I feel like it's themed, like its name and it's themed around like rock bands, and I feel like that would have done way better in the US, but I don't know. Either way, same console and platform. I played it on an NES. Okay, let's go back to... Alright, let's order these now and get everything in its final place and determine our top 10. Holy Diver is definitely number 1. I think Battletoads is... like, on paper, probably harder than Adventure Island. Adventure Island's... after you beat it once, it's not as hard as this game is. And most of the things that make it hard are like, oh, you just have to remember a lot of places to jump and what's happening on this exact screen. Which is kind of the same as Battletoads, I don't know. Okay, how many games we got up here? 1, 3, 5, 8, 9. So we need to add one of these up there. It's so hard because initially I ranked Castlevania pretty hard, but now after having played it a bunch, I'm like, oh, it's like not that hard anymore. No, Batman is really easy, and then the final boss is really hard. Batman is probably the easiest of these 4. Okay, I think I'm gonna go with Ninja Gaiden 2, because... even now, like... the final stage and final bosses are hard for me. Ninja Turtles, now that I have some strats, it's not as hard. Like, Batman, it's just the final boss that's hard. Castlevania, it's not as hard to figure out what to do. There's just, like, a couple hard bosses, and then again, if you learn what to do, they're actually... like, when you learn what to do in Castlevania, it's actually really easy. Whereas, this game still takes a lot of execution. Even Super C. I would probably go like that. Good idea, JJ. I'd better just play through them all again right now. Be fresh on all of them. I've done it before. I think that this game is harder. Yeah, we're probably looking about like that for our final list. It's just so hard to rank once again, because Blaster Master's not that hard most of the time, but actually beating the game, very hard. Castlevania 3 is hard most of the time, but it's just like kind of consistent, and like the peak difficulty isn't like quite as hard, or maybe it is. It's because you have limited continues in Blaster Master. That's actually the reason. If you had infinite continues, this game would not be really that hard. But because of that, I'm putting it above this one. And then Zelda 2 is like so hard, but also you learn and then you're like, maybe it's not that hard. And Ghosts and Goblins is only hard on like 2 stages. And Ninja Gaiden 3 isn't like that hard, but you have to do it all in one go. And there's just too many factors to consider, but that's probably my final list. Thanks for watching. You guys have any thoughts in chat about this? You want to see me play Holy Diver now? You can watch my first playthrough on the Gauntlet spreadsheet. That should link to... Yeah, I guess this is relevant for YouTube video also, but in the description I'll put a link to the spreadsheet I used where I ranked all of the games in difficulty, and there's a link, if you click on my first playthrough length, it will link you to my first playthrough of the game, on most of them. Yeah, I'm missing Contra for my 20th game. Oh yeah, we should order the bottom also. So Rygar is definitely the easiest game on this list. Probably like that. And then NES Gauntlet games. Metroid was easy. Mega Man I didn't think was that hard. I think Silver Surfer is probably harder than Mega Man. Punch-Out, I just like can't rank this one fairly. If you can learn to beat Mike Tyson, then I think Silver Surfer is probably harder. Bucky O'Hare is really easy, actually. It lets you respawn all the time. I don't know. Maybe something like that. Where's the reverse order? What game is the easiest? Oh, well, you just start right here and then go backwards. The 20 easiest NES games in one sitting? That's a good idea. Yeah, so one important note that I'm not sure I mentioned, but... Let's get a new song. All of the games, I like picked games I thought specifically would be fun, and also games I hadn't played before, so... There's probably some really common games out there that I don't have on the list, either because I played them or they're just like not my favorite genre. I had played Super Mario Bros. 2 from Japan, The Lost Levels, you know, that game. It also would not have made this list, even if I hadn't played it and played it for the first time. That game would probably come in like one spot above Rygar. I don't know. That game is like way overrated. As far as NES games go, like sure it's hard, but for an NES game, it's like below average difficulty, I feel like. Or at least when you're talking about hard NES games, it's really just nothing compared to these. Tips for Zelda 2 Death Mountain? I think it's like attack upgrade 4 or something. Like get that and then it becomes way easier. A lot of times people die at the beginning of the game and then they upgrade their health to try and die less, but you actually just want to upgrade your attack power. And you want to like carefully use the gemstones at the end of the palaces because they give you a free level up. And so if you have more XP currently than like the bottom two, like if you get to like 100 XP and it says level up your magic, you can decline, and then it's like, oh, I need like 600 XP to get attack power up. So then you get the gemstone, and then it gives you 600 XP instead of wasting it on like 100, if that makes sense. I think Silver Surfer should be higher. Yeah, I just didn't think it was that hard. I thought there was like 3 parts where an enemy flies in and just kills you, and it's like, oh, that's pretty dumb. But other than that, it's, I don't know. I don't think it's that hard of a game. And I think it's pretty fun, and I don't even like shooters. So I don't know. I just have a different opinion about that game. It's probably just a matter of expectations. There's a lot of games like, I just knew how much praise Mega Man 2 got, and so I went in like, this is going to be the greatest of all the games I'm playing. And then I got kind of frustrated at it. And it didn't help that like so many people in chat were extremely familiar with the game, and so they were being super annoying. Like backseat gaming basically. And yeah. Some of my opinions and experiences of the games are like a little biased because I streamed them. And it just can affect, like I played them probably under the worst conditions where I have to, I didn't have to, but most of the time I played them in like one sitting and with people being annoying in chat, and yeah. Yeah, Silver Surfer, if you can't mash 100%, I think you should just play it with turbo and still feel like you're actually playing a video game legitimately, because it's just, you should be able to hold the button and it fires. The fact that it doesn't is like, that's a bad design in the game. It's up to the player. Yeah, like good friend Schlimtor, he thinks that this game is like up here, right? Like just the hardest game ever. And for me, I'm like, it's like kind of not that hard. You just platform and throw your thing at the enemy. But yeah, once again, it's all subjective, and there's a million factors to consider in difficulty. But this is my list. Let me know what you thought.